Okay, so we're getting ready for the next talk here with AMMARA GAFOOR from ThoughtWorks, and I'm very excited. Oh, I keep forgetting to say I'm Scott Hurleman, host Data Mesh Radio. We're going to have a Data Mesh meetup later here in this theater. But I've been talking with AMMARA for a long time because, and I actually asked her if she would come and do this talk, because I think she's got a very, very good perspective on being pragmatic and what it takes, and that this is not going to be an easy road, and what it takes to build the momentum but also keep that momentum. And so, you know, especially when it comes to buy-in, we've been talking about how difficult buy-in is when it comes to data mesh, and not just gaining it at the start, but that continuous is so important. It's like whack-a-mole. You can't pretend that as soon as they're bought in, they're going to stay bought in. So, AMMARA is a good friend, and she's really, really awesome. So I'm very excited for this talk. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to AMMARA.
Thank you, Scott. Can you all hear me fine? Is it too loud? I tend to scream a lot. Okay. You've heard a lot about data mesh all day. We are in the data mesh data fabric theater. So I hope you're all going to go back and get some funding for your own data mesh programs. And that's why we're here, driving continuous executive buy-in. My name is AMMARA GAFOOR. I'm a principal technologist with data and AI. I work for ThoughtWorks. And I was the implementation lead for the Roche Data Mesh and Insights program. So for those of you who are in the data mesh space, you might have heard of the Roche implementation, which is one of the biggest ones. And in those 3 years, we were able to get buy-in and maintain buy-in for about 15 different business domains. We built about 50 data products, and we delivered about 35 use cases end-to-end. And that was no easy feat. So I know a little bit about executive buy-in. So according to me, stages of executive buy-in are something along the following lines. You have a problem. All of us know there is a problem with data. And to make a big story small, data mesh is solving some of our data problems, right? Okay. And we go to our execs and we tell them, come on, this time it's different. Data mesh is the solution, right? And yay, we get funding for the first time. The first funding is usually okay because everybody knows there is a problem. We want to give it a shot. You get funding. You finally start working. You set up your teams. You maybe deliver your first MVP. You're so happy you've got it going. And bam, they ask you for another value proposition. And they say, tell us, we need to do program management. We need to go into the next cycle of funding again. And what they ask you is, tell us what's the problem, and tell us again how data mesh is solving it. And so you are stuck in this budgeting cycle, and you just can't believe it. My team and I often like to call it executive buy-in grief, and we often go through all 5 stages of grief when we try to do this, right? We refuse to do it, then we bargain, we just did this, and at the end of the day, it's always acceptance. We sit down and write those Google slides, and we write those value propositions, right? And we say, please give us money. And that's more true now than ever, I would say. While it's really hard for us to ask for that money, to be fair, on the other side of the fence, there are people who actually have to make a decision on this funding criteria, and they actually have to make it understand whether is this hype or is it reality. And to be fair, we have often said that this is the solution. A tech trigger has basically told us this is a solution to all your problems. And we often do this with data mesh as well. And almost every solution out here, we're going to tell you this is a solution to all your problems. It's not. And often what execs are looking for on a continuous basis is, are we on track? What is the return on investment? Do we need to pivot? Are we on the right track here? What are the right metrics to track? You give me all these metrics and you're telling me about the potential of this data mesh, but are we on track at all? And is there tangible business value that's really being achieved? And when we are trying to write this value articulation, right, when you're trying to write this proposal to get funding, it's not easy. It's quite a challenge. Because we often say, write about the business value, tell us about the business value, articulate the business value. But the problem with business value as such, and I'm a business analyst, so I'll always tell you to write about business value, is that we often focus on specific use cases, specific data products, and which are high impact, which will tell you about the business value. But a CIO of a company or an exec of company is not responsible for just one business domain. They're responsible for the entire company. And so when you are telling them about a very tangible business impact in one domain, it has low reach. You're not really talking about how's my company doing as such. On the other hand, when we speak about tech value, we are speaking about data mesh in technological terms. We are talking about the data platform, the self-serve platform. The business value itself, there's no tangible way to say how is it helping my business today. On the other hand, you can say it is a high reach. We are able to serve 10 different data product teams, and they're able to build data products faster. But what does that really mean for the business? So this is a balance, and this is a challenge as well. It's really not easy. So when it comes to driving continuous executive buy-in, I don't have a magical solution. I'm just saying that there are certain pillars, certain guiding principles that helped us, and it was a combination of the following three things. It was about keeping it simple, about keeping it transparent, and 3, keeping it exciting. It sounds simple enough. Often, we don't do that. And so let me tell you a little bit more about each of these. Keeping it simple. For those of us who have actually worked maybe in manufacturing background, you may have heard of something called as economies of scale. And economies of scale is in the beginning when you're really talking about when you make the same thing multiple times. If you overproduce it, then the cost often reduces. And so when you're starting off on your data mesh journey, So when you're starting on your data mesh journey or you're trying to scale your data mesh journey, that means you're moving from one business domain to another business domain, very, very firmly anchor your use cases in one exec stakeholder's business problem. And I know I said it is both business and technology, but when we are talking about keeping it simple, please keep it simple. Anchor this firmly in one business stakeholder's problem. The reason I say this, along with the second point of prioritize your use cases by highest value and lowest effort. Don't go for the most complex use case. You're not trying to solve like rocket science stuff here. You're just trying to prove an idea. You're trying to build the data mesh. So go for use cases that have high value but low effort. And an anti-pattern that we often observe here is that people do what is called as pre-scouting. They go through all the use cases in the domain, and they identify all the potential data products, and they spend a lot of time seeing which data products can be used for all the use cases. Don't do that. That's not simple. Simple is by just sticking to one problem and finding 2 use cases that actually are related to each other. The data products of the first use case should be reused by the second use case. That means you're using economies of scale here. You're really going to try and reuse the first data products from the first use case in the second use case. For the first use case itself, end to end, you're still going to take exactly the same amount of time as normal, whether you do it with data mesh or without, it doesn't matter. Perhaps you will take a little longer. But for the second use case, you will be percentages far faster. In our example, our first use case took us 5 months. The second one took us 1 month. On an average, use cases take about 5 months, and here we did it in 1 month. And this is a very tangible way you can articulate business value in terms of money and in terms of time, and anchoring it with a business executive and making this person your spokesperson for saying, wow, I got something so fast, and I got it so tangibly, and was very tangible business value. It's simple to articulate. It's pure business value. Do this for every new business domain you start with in your company. Go exactly with this pattern, and it tends to work. My second guiding principle is about keeping it transparent. Now, we often all talk about transparency, but transparency, over transparency is also too much information. Being under transparent is just about keeping it under closed doors. So what we found is, all right, I'm going to introduce 2 concepts to you here when we are talking about transparency. The first concept, and many of you may have already heard about this, is what is called as architectural fitness functions. Now, this may sound technical, but remember, it's both business value and tech value, and they have to go hand in hand. Fitness functions is a concept that comes from evolutionary architecture when we talk about microservices. And the idea here is it's a function of what is an ideal solution and how close are we to this ideal solution. So this is what's called as a fitness function. Now, today's talk is not just about having buy-in for any data program or any project or any program that you're doing. It's very specifically about a data mesh buy-in, right? And the heart of data mesh is data products, are their data products. And data products are not just any data. They are very, very specific. And the thing that makes it so specific are the 6 characteristics of your data products, right? And this is what distinguishes data products from any data asset or any data set. So use fitness functions in your company, build the fitness functions in your company to actually say, is this a data product or not? For example, a function, a property of a data product is that it should be self-describable. So a simple fitness function should be, there's a test that says that if I run it, the data product should have a description to it. It's simple enough, but it makes sure that it's not just an empty data set sitting somewhere in Colibra and you call it a data product. It's not. This fitness function has to pass. And so you can do this for every single one of your data products. For example, is it addressable? So the test is there a unique URL? Is it discoverable? Are there automated checks on how fast you can find it? And this can be customized for your company. For some people, it could be via a data catalog. At Roche, for example, we had a marketplace. So was it discoverable, easily discoverable on the marketplace, not just with the exact data product name, but also with variations? Does it make business sense? Or is it just a table name? It's not. It's a data product. So what we did is that we ensured that these fitness functions existed for all the 6 characteristics of the data product. And these are completely customizable for what is the maturity of data mesh in your organization. In the beginning, it might be quite simple, and you might just put the most simple fitness function checks. And as you proceed and you get more mature, you add more viable checks that actually measure what's your progress as well. We now introduce the concept of fitness function. And the second concept in terms of transparency that I want to introduce to you is what we called as the data mesh supervision plane. The data mesh supervision plane is how we provide a transparency to all involved stakeholders and to the executives. The data mesh supervision plane, at first, the most important thing that it showed everybody was the number of fit data products, where fit here is the fitness function. So it gave transparency in terms of the data products that exist in the organization and how fit are they? What measure of fitness do they have? All the fitness functions we just talked about in the previous slide. And so this really proved, is it really a data product or not? As an example, we onboarded one of the business domains on the Roche data mesh, and they, in a matter of a month, they published 300 data products. How many of them do you really think were data products? None, right? Okay. I think we claimed it to be 2 at the end, but it was none, in my opinion, right? And so this really gives you transparency into, is it a data product or not? The second thing that we did is we ensured that the data mesh supervision plane always showed us the number of data products adhering to their SLOs. Remember, what's the problem we are trying to solve? The problem is that we don't like to use data that another team created because we don't trust them, right? And data products are supposed to be trustable because there's a team that's responsible for it. There's product thinking that has been applied to data. So if a data product publishes its SLOs and adheres to those SLOs, it's giving us a measure of, is it a reliable data product? So is it a data product? Is it a reliable data product? And finally, a third measure that worked very well for us was the number of shopped data products. So we had a marketplace that we built on top of our catalog, like we use Colibra, and then the number of people that actually wanted to use the data product, they shopped for it, and that they actually wanted to go for it, gave us a measure of, is it a useful data product? Now, there are a lot of metrics, and I don't claim that these are the most important metrics, but these 3 metrics gave us the measure of what was needed in terms of executive buy-in. This was important to us that we gave transparency along all these 3 layers. And so we built an executive view, which gave a view of, okay, in the data mesh supervision plane, what are the number of, at one glance, what is the number of shop data products? What is the current SLO adherence that we have? What is the top 3 most occurring fitness warnings that we have, for example? This was important to us because now we had an overview of what is the overall data mesh state in my company, which goes broad, but also tells you, we always have access request problems here. This seems to be a concern. Either the fitness function is not right, or we need more bandwidth or people assigned to this problem to actually help solve that, right? And so you can really understand, where do I need to pivot? Are we on track or not at the executive level? Step 2, go one layer low. Okay, so you have the company view. Now you do it at the domain view. Here I use the word domain interchangeably with like a business unit, you know. Whatever, I really don't want to get into what's a domain right now, but I'm using it interchangeably with the business unit. So you have one layer lower and you really get to see how are the different domains comparing with each other, you know. And this really worked in a way psychologically also on domains, because if you see that your domain is always the last one up there, it wasn't really that cool, you know. So what domains are doing well and what domains are not. So you're incentivizing your teams and the execs to actually invest into this and actually be up there on the good terms as well. When it came to the cross-domain view, remember, all 3 metrics are all times: fitness function, SLOs, as well as shop data products. So here we also always gave like a comparison about what is the shopping request happening like, and it depends. If you have more data products and you're getting more shopping requests, then it's a scale, it's a comparison of that. In our learnings, we found that it was less about the actual absolute value, but more about the visibility around it and to see the trend that emerged from it. And this is something that the execs in the company really craved for, and they wanted it. So this gives you like a comparison about where you are in terms of cross-domain. A third layer, so you have the exec layer, you have the cross-domain layer, and the third layer is what we call as the domain view. And this is when you can really zoom into a specific domain and you can see what is happening there. So we had, like, for example, finance, and you say generally on an average, the overall DP health status is as follows. You give like what are the most common fitness functions, are they passing or not? What are the most common requested data products for your domain? Does this solve all of data mesh's problems? No. Could this be actually used for starting conversations with domain exec, IT, as well as business leads? Absolutely, it did. It worked for us. And so here we could really identify what are the user value and problem areas at a specific domain level. Now at Roche, when we did this, finally we also could zoom down to the data product view, so where you're looking at specifically each individual data product. So you have all the 4 views, and at the data product level, you're just looking at the fitness functions. Is it a data product or not? Where is it consistently failing? And so that, for us, gave a layer of transparency that was very, very appreciated by our execs. So we use this data mesh supervision plane very much like a governance tool. For us, it was very, very essentially a part of how we did governance at Roche. We used it in terms of answering the question, how is data mesh evolving in the company? So just recapping that, so at the high level. And at this level, we could look at what business areas really need attention. So where do we have to go there? The second level was at the business or at the domain level, each specific domain level. And it answered the question, how are domains comparing against each other? And really, in terms of pivoting, we are looking at what teams need attention. So remember, one business domain, at least one data product team per domain. So if you consistently see this team is struggling, this domain is struggling, the fitness functions are not passing, so you really know, okay, these teams need attention. Something is happening here, and we need to investigate that. The third level, of course, was about then the actual data product view and what we called as the technology view as well. And in this, it was how is a specific domain doing and what data products need attention. So in a nutshell, you're answering all this and you're providing this transparency that is often overlooked. And therefore, when we come into the final stage of give me another budget proposal, you have to start from scratch again. By building this and using this as a conversation for every check-in, every meeting that you have, whether you have your architectural review meetings or you have your program portfolio management meetings, you use this as a governance tool to make sure the conversation is always around this data mesh supervision plane. Yeah, and finally, the third guiding principle for us was about keeping it exciting. Sometimes we are so often, I found that we were so involved in solving the problem and the beauty of actually building a data mesh as well, that we went very, very into the depth of what we needed to do, that we forgot that it is also exciting to work with data. It is really exciting to work with data. And so one of our things that we implemented really a year in was to ensure that we had capacity for innovation sprints. And we did this for all the teams that we had there. So at one point of time, I believe we had around 14 data product teams, and every one of them had to have innovation sprints. And we use them for different aspects of it. But in the times that we are right now, Gen AI and ML is basically one of the most talked about things. Don't get left behind. So for example, we build prototypes on, and actual first use cases, MVP use cases of you have your data available in this awesome data product format. Plug your Gen AI, LLM models on top of it and actually talk to your data. And so we built this for one of the business domains where instead of using dashboards, they could literally just say, hey, for this, in this data product, which was for a manufacturing domain, how many customers are actually dropping shipments? How many customers are doing this? What's the biggest problem we have? So just like you converse using your ChatGPT-like interface, you're talking to the data present in your data product. It didn't take us long. It took us less than 2 weeks to actually build this, all in one innovation sprint. The outcome of it is that we got funding for another year. Small investment, big returns. The second thing for us was really about prioritizing cross-domain use cases. We often speak about the potential of data mesh and the potential of data products. But remember that when we are in our individual domains, we are usually working on our domain priorities and the use cases and data products needed for our domains. Cross-domain use cases don't just emerge. You have to actively look for them. You have to seek them out. You have to prioritize this work. So look for these cross-domain use cases. And often, this is the work that hasn't been done before. You haven't really taken HR data and finance data, joined it together to see what is possible here. So take some time to actively think about it and involve your business colleagues, involve the subject matter experts in actually brainstorming for this and have dedicated time for that. And then prioritize into doing what you're doing as well. So don't just stick to the use cases of your business domain. Make sure, and I know it's quite difficult to get funding for big use cases, but if you reserve some capacity on the side for this, it gets done. It often gets done. So 20% capacity for each of the teams to work on these cross-domain use cases, which gives you funding for both those domains going further down the line. Yeah, and finally, this might be a little controversial here, but I'm going to put it up anyway. We are in difficult times, and a lot of times the business reports or the annual business company reports, if you're a publicly listed company, for example, often contains information that is really critical. You will really see what is it that the execs care about, what does the business care about, what is the solution to a problem that they need, and build your goddamn dashboards for it. It takes us 5 minutes to do. Just do it, build it, give it to somebody. People will stop interfering in what we have to do then, And so it's a small thing. I know, I'm sorry, it's controversial. I just saw somebody saying dashboards are dead. Let's give it another year. For now, they aren't, And while we just try and get like our buy-in, don't be afraid of building those dashboards. Read your business reports and build the dashboards for it, for the problems that are in there. If you have an analyst on the team, make sure you're reading your company's annual report and business report. It's important. This is what you should be solving. So that was my 20 minutes. Let's bring it together. For me, and what has worked for me often is when we wanted to do driving continuous buy-in, we made sure that we kept it simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Nobody needs to know all the intricacies of data mesh. You don't have to tell everybody about the end-to-end workings of it. Make sure you use the economies of scale when it comes to it. This is pure, tangible business value that you can actually articulate when you're trying to get funding. Make sure you keep it transparent. So we use, for example, the data mesh supervision plane. That's what we called it. It's a bunch of dashboards. It's a bunch of how you visualize it is up to you. This is how we did it. It was automatic. This was pure technology value in terms of how is your data mesh evolving across your company. And finally, keep it exciting. prioritize your cross-domain use cases, your AI and ML use cases, which is very, very tangible business as well as tech value. And all three of these together are guiding stones to help you not only get buy-in once, but make sure it is continuous by nature. And so, yeah, that's my talk. I hope it was useful. Thank you very, very much.